Welcome to Empire State Engagements. I'm Dr. Robert Childs here in Albany, New York for our special series of in-person conversations with the historians and curators of the New York State Museum. Welcome to Empire State Engagements. I'm excited to be here in person at the New York State Museum's off-site storage facility here in the state of New York. And I'm excited to be joined for the second time on our program by New York State Museum senior historian and curator of all sorts of history, but particularly economic history, Brad Utter. As you are already aware, some of Brad's most recent work was on the Erie Canal and the exhibit Enterprising Waters, as well as the catalog of the same title. And he's here today to talk to us about what kind of an artifact is it going to be?
Hand fire engine.
All right, well, let's go for it. So Brad, tell me about this fire engine.
Okay, we're here with circa 1890 Button Fire Engine Company hand fire engine. It is what's called a crane neck squirrel tail fire engine. It's the middle size engine that they produced. It's a number 3. It had 9-inch cylinders. I'll show you the basics on how it worked. It had what are called folding brakes, and these are called brakes, even though they don't look like brakes. But they fold down to here where people can pump them, and they were called brakes early on because if you had to stop, they would hold on to them to stop the engine. Later engines were equipped with actual brakes that would help, or certainly the larger ones were. And Button invented the folding brakes and the squirrel tail, in which the squirrel tail we don't have on. The hose is in pretty rough shape. But it connects here and it goes up into the tube here, and that's where it would rest. So when you get to a permanent water source, you can fold it out, put that into a cistern or a pond, whatever you need, or connect a larger hose to go elsewhere. Earlier engines were called hand tubs, and these are called hand tubs too, but the idea with a hand tub is you'd use the bucket brigade to fill up the tub, which is the box here. You'd fill up the tub and the pump would work from the water inside the tub. What the squirrel tail enables you to do is have a permanently connected, not permanently, but you'd have a connected hose that you can just put into a water source, and that saved time. You could also fill the tub, and they did fill the tub when they were ready to pump, and this one's got a unique feature, which I'll show you here. This is the toolbox, but inside the toolbox there's a little lever that you can pull down in here. Okay, and then if you come around here to the front, you can see that that lever opens up a valve inside the tub, so the actual box here, so that when you're pumping water in, you could fill the tub. And the reason for that was kind of ballast, to help keep it in place, but also to alleviate any pressure from leaks, anything inside. So that's kind of a unique feature that not all hand tubs had. But I'll show you how it works.
On the back of the engine, you would have the squirrel tail suction pipe, which I mentioned will go down into the water source. So water will go in through that hole. The vacuum chamber is the first area that it goes to, and the vacuum chamber helps regulate the flow and the pressure, keeping it steady as the pistons go up and down. The pistons are creating the suction, and the vacuum chamber helps keep the suction in between strokes and as it's going. So you see here there are 2 cylinders, and as the brakes or arms go back up and down, these pistons move up and down, drawing water in and out. They are forcing water into the air chamber, this big bulb, and the air chamber helps regulate the water going out through the hose. If you didn't have an air chamber, the water would just come out in squirts. So the air inside the chamber keeps the water steady, and it shoots out in a steady stream. And in this engine goes out 2 pipes. There are 2 discharges that you can see here. And the fireman could use one or both.
This was a village engine, so for a small place, and it did have 5 stroke settings. And so what that would do is you have you can change it here, and the larger stroke, meaning the piston comes out further, the further out it goes, the more water you're forcing through with each pump. And depending on how many men you had on the brakes, or how many people you had on the brakes, would play into that. The minimum that you would have was 8 people to have it do a steady flow, according to the catalog. But it could do up to 36 people on this. The brakes are 17 and a half feet long, and well trained, as the catalog states, and I've seen it in action. Well trained, you could get 36 people on this. And what they do is you have people on the outside and then people on the inside. So imagine the brakes fold down, you're in here pumping, and then people on the outside pumping. This is also a little unique. I believe it's a unique design. So the company that bought this, the Wakefield Nerid Engine Company, number 1, they purchased it in 1890. And my belief is that it was a refurbished engine at that point. 1890, they were still building new hand engines, but really their focus was on steam fire engines. And I think this one was refurbished, and one of the things they added was a unique design for the brakes. And they actually curve in. And so this is very close to here, but it bends out a little. Normally, it would be straight across. And I think that they were experimenting with having an angle for leverage. Some people have surmised that it might be that the metal bent, but I believe the metal would have snapped. It would not have bent. So I think that that's possibly a unique thing that they did when they rebuilt it or made it new. And one of the things, as you look at it, it looks like it's rust, but it's not rust. It's actually faded maroon paint. So if you get close, you can see that it was either maroon or, and there are elements of red. There are certain sections where you can see the original paint, but it's not rust. It is an old paint. There are a few spots of rust, but it also has a dual output here, so you can connect 2 hoses at once when you're operating. A smaller engine usually only had 1. As far as this is a Model 3, Model 1 being the biggest. So the 4th size only had one output and didn't have any stroke adjustments. So I mentioned that this was purchased by the Nerid fire engine company from Wakefield, and Wakefield is actually in southern Westchester and was absorbed into the Bronx. And in 1889, they felt the growth and they wanted to add a fire company. So the Nerid Fire Engine Company was formed in 1889. In 1890, I found evidence that they went up and purchased this in Waterford, where the Button Fire Engine Works is located, and other signs point to this being a Button engine as well. Nerid is the name of the company and the nickname of the engine. That is a reference to Greek mythology, Greek religion. Nereids were sea nymphs, women, and that was a common thing to name your engine after mythical things that have to do with controlling water, like Sea Witch was another name you'd see often, or any name dealing with water were common. Up here, I was able to make out the motto of the group, and I want to get it right. My Latin is a little rusty. Cor unum via una, one heart, one way. And the way I figured that out is making out each letter across, and that's the only spot I have found a reference to it. No doubt that that was their motto, one heart, one way, and that was also common for 19th century fire engines to have a motto, the company motto, if you will, and this was used from 1890 to only 1896. The community was growing, and it grew so much that they were absorbed into New York City and became part of the Bronx, which was decided in 1895, but actually took place in 1896. And this particular group, the Nerid Fire Engine Company, owned their firehouse. They made it and built it with their own money, so it was not town property. Other fire companies in a similar situation had their equipment and buildings absorbed and taken over by the fire department in New York City. And usually they were replaced with steam engines. So because they had owned the building, they got to keep their engine, and they got to keep their engine in there. What they had also done before being absorbed into the Bronx is they had used one of their rooms or some of their space to rent to the police as a jail, and also some of the office space for the town offices. And when they lost their role as firemen, they rented out the jail to the new New York City New York City Police Department in that area. So they continued to use it, and the building had a long life as the jail and the police headquarters for that area. And the engine stayed in that space. And they formed a social organization at that point in 1896, and they were the Nerid Fire Company Exempt Association of Exempts. And they continued to have a social function, a social role in the community, until about 1933, when their numbers were very small, and they donated it to the New York Historical Society, who in turn fairly recently passed it on to us here at the New York State Museum. So when I mentioned the style, I talked about the squirrel tail and the crane neck. This is the crane neck, and this was apparently a development by Button, but he didn't patent it, as the story goes. And the benefit is, with the use of the fifth wheel here and the crane neck, the engine can turn completely in its own length. So that was unusual and new. Most wagons, the wheels can't turn underneath, and you have a long turning radius, but this could turn right in its own length.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for sharing this with us and for discussing this fascinating new artifact of the New York State Museum's collections. And thank you for joining us now for a second time here on Empire State Engagements, and I look forward to talking with you again.
It's been my